Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Shebirds Podcast. Today I have O.E. Tearmann. So, can you explain to our listeners about yourself? Give our listeners tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am Olivia Wylie. I'm the O in O.E. Tearmann. I write with E.S. Argentum, and together we wear the O.E. Tearmann pen name as a trench coat. And we write the Aces High Jokers Wild series, which is hopeful queer spec fic, sex, drones, rock and roll.
That's awesome. So, when did you first realize you wanted to be an author?
I actually didn't at first. I come from a background of very strong oral storytelling, so a lot of storytelling around fires, but I grew up in a very Western productivity focused household. So it's like storytelling is for family, and then you go out and get a real job.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to meet my co-writing partner, E.S., and we started playing with telling stories together in originally a play-by-post role-playing game. And we made it private, so we were just creating characters and tossing lines of dialogue and scenes back and forth between each other, telling a collaborative story. And we created an entire story that we made a comic out of. That's a steampunk story. We had a lot of fun doing that. And that was just our comfy place. Our safe place was telling stories together after a bad day, especially. And then 2016 hit like a hammer. And we had most of our circle of friends is outside the mainstream in some way. And so we were hearing a lot of nihilism, we're just screwed. We're just screwed. So E.S. and I looked at each other and said, fine, we're just screwed. Let's imagine the darkest version of America that we can, barring a nuclear winter, because those stories are boring. That's either you live or you die. Mm-hmm. There's nothing else. And then let's write our way out of it. Let's figure out how we get out of it. So we started writing this series set in the future that we could see if things kept going the way they were going in 2016. And in this future, it's 2155. Climate change has really cracked down, and 7 corporations own all of them, what used to be the United States of America. Mm-hmm. The day you're born, your parents have to sign a corporate citizenship contract for you to pay for your parents being in the hospital, for you being born, basically. And you're indentured for life. But there are people fighting that system and fighting to return democracy to what used to be the United States. And our series revolves around a unit in this resistance force. They're called the Wildcards.
Nice. Wow. So that's where you got your ideas from, your stories was from that?
Yeah, essentially extrapolating both the good and the bad that we could see. So it's not all dark, I promise. In fact, my joke is spoilers, things get better. So in each book, things get better. But when I talk about extrapolation, I'm talking about, we look at essentially what have people with too much wealth and not enough milk of human kindness done before.
Yes.
And then we say, what could they do if they had tomorrow's technology? So we look at people like Philip Pullman of the Pullman Train Car Company. We look at various robber barons from the Gilded Age, and we say to ourselves, what would they do if they had the kind of tech we have even today, or worse, tomorrow? And that's what we write. But we also write, like, one of our main characters has an AI therapy program. So in the evenings, he goes back to his room and he turns basically his private therapist on and does his mental health work with this program that's actually really good at helping him and getting him to work through some of his anxiety and depression issues, because that's what we dream about. Wouldn't it be nice to just turn on an effective therapist whenever you need? Or we explore, so my co-writer is non-binary, And one of the things we explore is the fact that transition surgeries will get better in the future.
Yes.
And much more effective, much quicker, much easier to recover from, but also generally injuries will be easier to treat if you're lucky enough to get medical attention, is always the caveat.
Mm-hmm. That's nice that we're having this conversation because I just booked two transgender women on my podcast. So
Oh, neat.
nice. Hopefully they check this out. I messaged them not too long ago, so hopefully they listen to this interview. That is nice though. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Noniers, Nonier is their preferred name. They write as E.S. Argentum, so I'm going to slip up once in a while. So E.S. is non-binary and is huge on this form of study. And so they've put a lot of work into like what could transition surgery look like in the future. And we address that because Aiden, the commander for the wildcards, is a trans man. And in the series, he's finishing up his transition. And so we get to write these really sweet scenes where his boyfriend is going with him to go get a surgery. And you know, there's nothing cuter than writing, "Am I awake from surgery yet? No, love, go back to sleep."
Oh wow. I'm gonna check out this series. So can you tell us like a brief summary of all of the books in the series?
Sure. Book 1 is called The Hands Were Given, and it introduces the cast of characters and the world. It is Aiden's first assignment to command. And originally when he was told you're going into command, his response was, "Wait, me? Wait, what? No, I'm not. No, I'm not." And he has a commander, a regional commander, which is the next rank up, who was like, "I've seen you in action. You're a great commander. Now go do it." And so Aiden gets his feet under him and meets his guy, Kevin, in book 1. In book 2, the wild cards who had been having a lot of problems in book 1 are back in strength, and they're assigned a big mission. And they hit the ground running. And from there, each book builds on the successes of the previous ones. So in book 6, which we're writing right now, there are 5 books out. We've built up to working with civilians where the force, the Democratic State Force, they call themselves, are working to disconnect all of the surveillance programs that watch citizens for the corporations, and B, teach citizens about, all of the nonviolent resistance methods that have worked successfully in the past to take down dictators. And they're like, "This stuff works. We will teach it to you. We will make sure that the corps can't let loose drones, and the rest is up to you guys." So yeah, in book 1, you say you can get bombed out by a drone at any time. By book 6, things are completely changing and everyone's rising up. So
nice.
Yeah.
So kind of along the lines of like a little bit like Star Wars a little.
Star Wars without the nihilism, maybe. It's we're kind of the opposite of Star Wars in mindset. It's like, yeah, things do get better. It's a hard fight. It's never going to be easy, and it's never going to be fast. But things can change, and things have to change, and we can make them change. And along the way, it's a story about a found family taking care of each other and people stepping into their power. So one of the things we've really enjoyed working on is the fact that people who are supported can do amazing things. And if you are able to start healing, then you can help someone else start to heal. For example, like I said, in book 1, Aiden is very anxious, very unsure of himself. And he starts to come into his own strength as a commander and as a man in book 1. Well, he's handed this spitfire, right off the streets kid who literally, she gets freaked out. She breaks someone's nose. She is like panic with a switchblade and a pair of combat boots, and her name is Tweak. But she's also an amazing coder. So as Aiden is able to be confident in himself, he can support Tweak. And part of that is putting in boundaries, like, Tweak, you can't break people's nose just because you get freaked out. But I can, we can work with you to get you some anti-anxiety meds, and we'll work with you to handle those situations. Nobody is going to touch you anymore now that we know you don't like to be touched. And essentially, it's like support allows this girl to become part of the team instead of just, you broke someone's nose, you're out. And when she becomes part of the team, her coding skills allow for things that could never be done before to happen. But if they hadn't offered her that support and that family first, they wouldn't have gotten those skills. And if Aiden hadn't been in a place where he could offer that because he'd already gotten someone else supporting him, you couldn't have any of the successes of the following books. So we like showcasing that, because too often in the world, there is this drive to be perfectly mainstream, drive to be perfectly productive. And if you don't fit, you get tossed out.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's crap. That means you just never get all of the amazing skill sets of folks who are from different walks of life or different experiences.
I agree. It's like a lot of people are closed-minded. They don't open their mind to different things because it's something new to them. So they're like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So I
or
agree.
They're too scared. Yeah, they're too scared to see what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're too set. They're too rigid.
Yeah.
And I'm a landscaper by trade. And anytime I see somebody being so rigid, like, well, it has to be this way, this is how it functions, I look at them and I'm like, in plants, that kind of rigidity kills you, because the next time the wind really blows, you're going to break.
Yes.
And so it's a different way of being, to be a little more open-minded and flexible. It doesn't mean you always have to like it. I mean, it's pretty clear in the books. There are certain coping mechanisms that are not healthy, and it's like, I will support you, but you have to unlearn that. It doesn't mean you have to be a doormat, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree.
But yeah, in terms of what it's like, the story itself, if you crossed Firefly with the Minority Report, you'd get it.
Oh.
It's a more like Firefly in attitude. One of our characters is a history buff, and he loves old things, but for him, because this is 2155, for him, old things is the 1980s. And so we play with this retro 80s vibe throughout the series. Lots of geeky references to the 80s.
That's nice. That's awesome. I'm about to check out those series. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's a lot of fun to be able to get some of those pop references in. Like in book 3, Kurt Grave reads our audiobooks for us, and he does such a great job. But it was nice because Kevin is a history buff, we can write a scene where he's watching an old show about the history of sunken New York. So New York has become this super Venice, like half of it's underwater, and they just made all the roads into canals. But there's a scene where they're talking about history, and Kevin just says, turn the thing off. And Aiden's like, why? He's like, see the orange guy on the podium? He's the one who caused all of this. I don't want to look at him.
I was going to mention this. Somebody just commented on there. I don't think you can see it. Can you see the comments at the bottom where it says comments?
No, I can't.
You can't. Okay, somebody commented, and he said your series and mine should play together. It sounds like we've been playing in the same sandbox. That's
Oh,
what I was gonna let
fun.
you know, like, because I read his book and it does sound like you two like should get together and write a book together. Like his is really good. So I'm
Oh,
like, wow.
and who's the author?
His name is Adam Gaffin. I
Okay,
interviewed
I'll have to take a look. And I write reviews as well, so I'm always looking for other people's stuff to read. But I guess what differentiates us is that we're focused on a stubborn, fierce form of hope.
him.
Because I think a lot of people, they either get nihilistic when things get rough, oh, we're just screwed, which is a form of emotional laziness, honestly. It's like, I can't do anything, therefore I don't have to do anything. Or they fall into the easy optimism, oh, it'll work out. And what we focus on is like, yeah, I see it. I know it sucks. Now, what are we doing about it? Now, what are
Yeah.
we going to do? Turn up the music, tie up your boots, let's get to work.
Right.
And so that's kind of the spirit of our series is, yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, it sucks. But we're still going to figure out how to scrounge a cake for so-and-so's birthday. And we're still going to get up in the morning and take care of the kids. And we're still going to take care of each other. And we're still going to fight. And also, one of the things we like in writing an ensemble cast, we get to showcase that fighting means lots of different things, because you don't just need somebody who can, swing a baseball bat. You need somebody who can write code, and you need someone who can cook everybody dinner and check in with them and say, did you eat today?
Yeah.
And you need somebody who can break up arguments and be like, okay, take that command position. Okay, your idea has points, your idea has points. Let's calm down, let's talk. And people forget that we don't just need warriors. We need all the classes to take
Yeah.
the D&D metaphor. So we love writing the wild cards because the person who makes sure that the electricity on their base runs perfectly and their water system is working so nobody gets listeria, which is a waterborne disease that will kill you. She's just as important as anybody who goes on grid to plant viruses and stuff.
Wow. That's really nice. I'm gonna have to check that series out. That's something along the lines of stuff I like to read.
I think, yeah. And fair warning, there are curse words, a lot of them. The lady I just talked about, the hydroelectrics officer, she is a trans lady and she loves to cuss. She makes up curse words like all the time, and her buddies on the base will just turn and go, nice one. And so yeah, it's a lot of fun writing this team. And
I just
it's,
want to ask you a question, like
yeah,
outside of the questions I was going to
yeah, of
ask you.
course.
How is it working with someone else on a novel? Like, I've always wondered that. Like, how do you two work together? Like, I don't know. It would be difficult for me because I would be like set in my ways and they probably be set in their ways. So how is it working together?
It is one of the best experiences of my life. I will tell you right now, I'm one of the lucky ones. Um, Finding the right person to write with, I just got lucky. I can't tell you how it happened, but we started off, like I said, with those play by post games. So we learned each other's habits. We learned each other's ways of being when there was no pressure. And then we cut our teeth on the comic Parmesan, which was where we learned how to balance each other because we have two different reactions to stress. My reaction to stress is I'm going to create, I'm going to hyper focus. I only want to think about this creative thing because I don't want to look at the rest of the world. ES's reaction to stress is I don't want to have to think. I just want to play games. I want to relax. Don't make me work. So when we were both stressed, we had to learn that. And we had to learn boundaries. Like we have days where we only hang out as friends. And then we have other designated days that are, okay, work on project days. and making that boundary has been very important.
Yeah.
But yeah, together we make something better because ES's specialty, and this is where they write it in under their own name. They write really character-driven stories. They write really interpersonal stories that focuses on support and emotion. And I am a creative magpie. I love getting into the nuts and bolts of, so how would this, solar panel work? How would this work? How would that work? So what we do is we write a first draft in the old play-by-post format. One person writes a line of dialogue using one of their characters, quote unquote. Each of us kind of runs, for want of a better word, a certain set of characters. And that gives us a rather voluminous, kind of crazy draft one.
Mm-hmm.
Then ES cleans it up and they toss it to me. And then I go into it and I'm like, okay, I know we referenced some piece of tech over here. Let's fix that. And I know we referenced this creative genius over here. Let's flesh that out. And I add all the nuts and bolts and details in. And then I toss it back to ES. They check it over. We toss it back about 4 times. And then we toss it out to this wonderful tribe of beta readers and sensitivity readers and technical readers that we've ended up getting to know. So we have someone who reads for trans issues. We have someone who reads for POC issues. We have someone who reads for coding because ES is a social media analyst, and I'm a landscaper. So there are certain things where I know what I want my coder character to do, but I don't know what I'm doing. So this is when I hand it, I'm like, hey, Michael, help. How do I do that? And it's meant so much to have that group of really solid sensitivity and technical readers to really make our work shine the way we want it to.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah,
So,
we've been really blessed.
yeah, definitely. So, who are a few of your favorite authors, and have any of them inspired a few of your novels?
Diane Duane for me, Charles DeLint, and Terry Pratchett. I will say none of them directly inspired any of the novels, but they've been really strong influences. I learned from Diane Duane, you can stare the spirit of entropy in the eye and say, yeah, I see you. And I'm still not going to back down, and I'm still not going to let you win. I'm still going to support life every day. And Terry Pratchett taught me the world is crazy and full of I'm looking for the right word, zaniness and cruelty and beauty all at once. And at the end of the day, you just have to keep rolling with it. And Charles DeLint got me through some of the worst years of my childhood, the age where I thought I was going to run away from home. Now, I'm going to defend my mom here. It was not my mom. It was our circumstances. I thought I had an age where I thought my mom would have an easier life if I wasn't around. Big mistake. So I thought I would run away from home so she wouldn't have to worry about money. Charles DeLint had stories about what it was like to live in a magical world and live in a supportive community. And it kind of convinced me, like, just get through this time. This beautiful city life with supportive friends is just around the corner. I just got to live through, because all of his characters had lived through high school and hated it. And they got out the other side and had this amazing life. So those 3 were huge for me. I'd say a lot of the story, honestly, from my part of it, and of course, as a co-writer, ES's influences come in a lot as well. But for my part of it, watching a lot of MASH 4077 definitely went into this. Like I can even tell when I'm starting to use some of the tropes, some of the jokes from MASH 4077. A fair amount of Bon Jovi went in, like just that fierce. It's not really joy, but fierce optimism. Like, yeah, the world's broke, and I'm mad about it, and I'm gonna yell about it, and I'm gonna fix it. And a fair amount of pretty much a lot of classic rock. I'm a classic rock geek.
That's awesome. Somebody said MASH. I love it.
Yeah, MASH was huge for me. So my mom worked very long hours when I was a kid, and MASH 4077 was kind of our babysitter. And so we were always watching that. And my mom is a veteran, so she also really enjoyed watching it with us because it spoke to all the parts of the Army she did like. And it kind of, yes, the show gets very dark, but it has that supportive family that you don't always find in the armed forces, but when you do, it's solid gold.
Yes.
So yeah.
I remember watching MASH. Yeah, watching MASH whenever I was younger because my mom, we really didn't have cable. So
Mm-hmm.
our TV shows was The Simpsons, MASH, and X-Files.
Right.
So
And there's only so many times you can watch either The Simpsons or X-Files, but MASH, you could just watch it over and over. Actually, one of the ways I practice Spanish and Irish both is watch episodes of MASH in those languages because I know them well enough that I'm like, huh, so that's how you say horse hockey in Spanish. Got it. So yeah, but just the idea that being a community and taking care of each other will get you through the darkest days. And there's something to be said for standing with your friends, holding a candle in your hand and telling the dark to screw off.
yes.
I come from a family that has a history of mental health problems and intergenerational traumas. And we've lost too many people to suicide.
Yeah.
I'm going to be real upfront with you about that. So I'm really big on, yeah, I see the dark. I'm looking right at it and I'm telling it to go screw itself.
Yeah. I wish I could be that way. Like last year, I tried to kill myself 8 times. So I've
Yeah.
definitely changed.
I hear you. I mean, I ended up. That's part of what it means. I mean, it's helpful to have those close friends because it's not every day that you can just stare at the dark. Some days you got to look away, and some days it gets to you.
Oh,
But one of the hardest times in the last few years was when my baby cousin of mine. I have a huge family, so I'll just say that up front. You'll hear my cousin a lot, but a little 13-year-old in my family killed himself, and that hit really hard. And so when that kind of thing happens, it really slaps you upside the head and makes you say, we got to fix this world because it's killing our kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, bad enough when it's killing us, but it's killing our kids.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't understand mental illness, mental health.
No, they don't
understand it.
So
and
yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
I'm going to do a little bit of a shameless plug. Donir and I have a shared pet peeve that people say go get help, and it's like saying Google it, but worse.
Yes.
Because if you've ever tried to call for any problem, like I think about this, mentioning my cousins, I think about what I had to do to find the right therapist, even though I had an amazing GP who basically like streamlined the whole thing for me, and I have good health care. I still had to call around and deal with various shenanigans before I found the right person. And I was exhausted after 3 calls. And I was thinking, in my family, I'm one of the high functioning ones. I just have anxiety. If one of my cousins who is struggling a little bit more had gotten 3 rejections, that'd be it. They'd be out of hope, of energy. And I just keep thinking, we got to fix this system. So to that end, at the back of each of our books, we put a list of resources for if you finish the book and you're like, that's how I feel. That's what's going on for me. Then you flip to the last page and there's a bunch of resources right there. Like, call these guys if you're having suicidal concerns. Call these guys if you're working with LGBT issues. And everything that we address as a theme in the book, each book gets its own set of resources to address the themes in that book. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Like, I wish a close family friend of mine, he had like came out as gay, and his parents didn't take it well, and so he committed suicide.
That's
So yeah, definitely like really high on my list of like concerns, like when people come to me.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
it's so rough. And I hear you. It's when you lose someone because they didn't get the help they needed, it'll rip your guts out.
and
And it's
a lot of people ask me, they're like, why do you interview people? Like, why do you do this? And I feel like it's a form of therapy for me. Like, it
yeah,
helps me get my mind off suicide. So whenever I have like a bunch of interviews, I don't think about suicide. So I'm just like, okay.
I hear you. So various people tease me about this, but I think about Teddy Roosevelt. And he would talk about, I must run faster. The demons can't catch up. And I hear you because I own a landscaping business and I put in native gardens for the High Plains desert. And my line is like, okay, my public line is in every garden a world of possibilities. My private line is get rid of frickin' Kentucky bluegrass. Let's put in some native gardens here. So yeah, when I'm out planting, nothing else gets to me. Like, I am digging holes. I've got my hands in the dirt. Grab that shovel, move this rock.
Yes.
When I have something valuable to work on, the demons can't catch up.
Yeah.
It's when I go home at the end of the day and let my brain freewheel that's dangerous. Although I'm trying to cultivate a place where I can be still without being in the dark. And that's what I'm really working on right now, is the idea that rest is not a reward. It's a necessity for good work tomorrow.
Yes.
Because I think we teach ourselves sometimes, like, I work this hard and then eventually I can rest. It's like, no, we got it backwards.
So I did want to ask you, what is the hardest scene you had to write and why?
Oh, God. The torture scenes in book 4, we hated every second of them. I mean, we did all our research. We checked in with a friend who's in medicine. We did all of the good research stuff, but the actual writing of those scenes, it was just awful. But the thing about going up against the kind of powers we're writing our characters going up against is eventually you do have to look the evil in the eye. You can't just keep referencing it. So I never want to write another torture scene. I never want to write another one. I hate writing that kind of stuff. So we basically like gritted our teeth, got through those scenes, and got to the other side and got to the stuff that fixes the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But oh man,
That was
just tell you how rough it was. Like I said, I hyperfixate on creativity. It was one of the only times in the last 10 years I took a project and I was like, I can't work on this right now. It needs to be over here. I have to work on something else.
Yeah.
It was just awful.
Man.
Yeah,
So
it just ripped me up.
no. What advice would you give what advice would you give to help others who want to pursue a writing career? or writing?
I'm going to give a couple of pieces of advice. One, you're going to hate it, but the only way to learn to run is to fall flat on your face a couple of times, if not a bunch. So don't be afraid of falling flat on your face. Don't be afraid of the rejection letter, of any of that. That's you learning. Even I'm going to tell you, there are going to be days where you're going to want to punch the wall or start crying. When you get your published book in and it has a weird typo that you swear you caught, you're going to want to cry. But we live in an era where you can go in and fix that typo. You don't just have to accept screw ups. Cry for a minute and then say, okay, let's go fix this. Don't be afraid of a bit of a zigzag in your career. So things are going to be, sometimes they're not going to work. Sometimes the proof is going to come back backwards or upside down. Yes, it has happened. Don't be afraid of that. Expect it. That's just part of the process. Sometimes you're going to find a publisher who's sketchy or doesn't work for you. That's part of the process. Sometimes you're going to get really nasty, vicious reviews. Don't make it about you. This is about how this person interacted with your work. That's on them. If it's like it's full of typos, you can fix that. But we've gotten some reviews where it's like, why are they pushing homosexuality? And it's like, yep, that's on you. Go away.
Okay.
And so, yeah, don't be afraid. You learn by doing. The other thing I'd really recommend is get to know other authors. I mean, it's hard in this era of COVID, but I would recommend getting into some writing chat groups. Be careful if you're dealing with mental health stuff about which one you select, because some of them are brutal. My advice is put in place a strikes policy for yourself. Like, mine is a 3 strikes policy. If this group makes me feel like crap 3 times in a row, I drop out.
Yeah.
And that is not quitting. That's not backing down. That's me saying I'm wasting energy here that I could be using elsewhere. But eventually you try enough groups, you'll find one you really fit in, and then start beta reading for other folks and beta read and have them beta read for you. You'll try some out. They won't work. You'll try others out. They will. And the last thing I'm going to underline is find and pay sensitivity readers or technical readers for any issue that you're particularly concerned about. And this doesn't just have to be social issues. If you have a character who is an herbalist in your story, talk to somebody who knows plants, because as somebody who does know plants, I'll tell you, one of the things that made me put a book down the fastest was when the quote unquote witch made a vision tea that had 9 leaves of belladonna in it. And I was like, honey, the only thing you're going to see is the pearly gates. You're dead. That will kill you. So yeah, find people
to be knowledgeable on things.
Yeah, find technical readers who can double check your mechanics. And if you've got any social issues in the story, of course, get a sensitivity reader. And especially if it's not your culture, get a sensitivity reader. And that will make your story so much stronger. And it's so worth it to get told behind, I call it behind the curtain, like when you're in the writing process by yourself, to get told that's not the phrase we use. Because the response to any beta reader or sensitivity reader who tells you something factual you got wrong is thank you. Because it's so much better than having a published book out there that people can catcall for blaring mistakes that are just embarrassing later.
Yes, I
Fix
agree.
it behind the curtain.
I agree. Because I've read a few. I'm like,
well, and that's the last piece of advice is you don't have to agree with everything your beta reader or sensitivity reader says, but always respond with thank you for pointing that out. Not, well, I didn't mean it like that. That's not going to help you and it's not going to help them.
Exactly.
Always say thank you. And you can even be like a little self-deprecating, like, oh man, I thought I got that right. Thank you. I've definitely done that. Or it's like, I thought I had that. Or occasionally, I've unfortunately in my work learned some new epithets for different groups that I had no idea about because of where I come from in the country.
Mhm.
And I will kid you not, my response to one in particular was frickin' racism. How many different places can this come out? Like, and then of course to the sensitivity rate, thank you for catching that. I had no idea. Oh my god. Why is our language like this?
Wow. Yeah, I don't blame you. It's definitely tough out there when you're writing on different subjects that you may not know much about. So yeah, I agree. I agree. I want
Well,
to thank you. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to finish and say sometimes it's where you're from in the country. Like in upper Midwest, that might not be a thing. And, down south, it might.
Like I'm from Kentucky and we have like horses just walking around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I want to thank you so much, Olivia, for coming on here today and allowing me to talk about your book.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You have a great day.
You too.
I want to thank everyone for listening to our interview today. So, if you would like to purchase their books, you can go to the link. It's streaming, like it's tinkering below this interview. So, you can check out their books and check out what else they do. So, I want to thank you all so much for your support. Thank you.